Welcome back to the GSMC Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We just got done talking about Barcelona and Argentina soccer updates, and we're now going to transition to talking about the women's MMA. So we're going to talk about two past UFC Fight Night matchups that were really exciting to watch, even though they were kind of a little long ago. The fights we're going to talk about is Ribas v. Namajunas from March 23rd and Blanchfield v. Fiorot from March 30th. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with the Ribas v. Namajunas from March. What date did I say? March 23rd. Oh my gosh. My bad. Oh, so sorry, guys. Anyway, so this fight seriously had it all. Amazing finishes, wild fights, and even a bite in it, which is crazy. Namajunas ended up beating Ribas in the fight by an unanimous decision. I'm going to first give some background information as to both who these fighters are. As of March 26, 2024, Amanda Ribas is number 9 in the UFC Women's Flyweight rankings, and as of April 9, 2024, she is number 8 in the UFC Women's Strawweight rankings. Rose Namajunas is a former 2-time UFC Women's Strawweight champion. As of April 2nd, 2024, she is number 6 in the UFC Women's Flyweight rankings, and as of April 9th, 2023, she is number 7 in the UFC Women's Pound-for-Pound rankings. This fight took place in Las Vegas. This was Namajunas' first step in a quest to reach the top of the flyweight division, and she ended a 2-bout losing streak in this fight. 2 of the judges gave Namajunas 4 of the 5 rounds, and the other judge scored 3 in her favor. Ribas was able to score 4 takedowns, but she ended up in a bottom position in all but one occasion. Namajunas did not deliver a lot of damage from the top, but she had nearly 7 minutes of control time. Ribas attempted a few submissions, but made little effort to get back up, and that really did cost her. When the fight was standing, Ribas was busier with strike attempts, but Namajunas was far more accurate, landing at just under 50%. Neither competitor wobbled the other with strikes. Namajunas controlled the range all fight long, but the power she had shown at strawweight was not present against Ribas. After the fight, Namajunas mentioned she wanted to fight Fiorot, Blanchfield, and Macy Barber. At this time of her fight, all were ranked ahead of her in the ESPN rankings. After the fight, Namajunas said, "Man, it's good to get your hand raised. I know I still got things to work on. She did really good, but I was able to just stay calm in there." So now let's just switch right over to the fight of Blanchfield v. Fiorot, which took place on March 30th. Okay, so as of April 2nd, 2024, Manon Fiorot was number 2 in the UFC Women's Flyweight rankings and number 4 in the UFC Women's Pound-for-Pound rankings. Erin Blanchfield is a former Eddie Bravo Invitational champion. As of April 2nd, 2024, she is number 3 in the UFC Women's Flyweight rankings, and as of April 9, 2024, she is number 8 in the UFC Women's Pound-for-Pound rankings. In this fight in Atlantic City, New Jersey, Fiorot solidified her status as the next number 1 contender with a dominant performance over Erin Blanchfield. Fiorot throttled Blanchfield's attempts to take her down and landed the cleaner strikes en route to an anonymous 50-45 judges' scorecards. The 125-pound women's main event headlines the first UFC event in Atlantic City since 2018, so this was a big deal. Fiorot improved to 7-0 in the UFC after this match. Blanchfield, who fights out of New York, showed a lot of heart over the course of the 5-round main event, but she was just simply overmatched against the bigger, better striker. Fiorot's physicality was a major difference in the contest, as Blanchfield struggled to get the fight to the ground or control things along the fence. Blanchfield's greatest strength is her grappling, but the 24-year-old seemed to accept Fiorot would be difficult to bring down and challenged her on the feet. According to UFC stats, Fiorot outlanded Blanchfield in total strikes 164-142. Although the difference in total strikes wasn't awful, Fiorot clearly landed the harder strikes, which primarily relied on her counter right hand. She opened a cut over Blanchfield's right eye in the 3rd round and stunned her with another right hand in the 4th. And that, it was rough. It just did not look very, very pretty. Ugh. Yeah, I don't think I could ever be an MMA fighter. I do not have the guts for that. Fiorot's run includes wins over Blanchfield, Rose Namajunas, Caitlin Serra-Nonara, and Jennifer Maia. So now let's talk about the current rankings in strawweight, bantamweight, and flyweight. Starting with strawweight, Sean Wheely is first with a record of 25 wins and 3 losses. Her last fight was a win against Yi Xiaonan. At second is Amanda Ribas with a record of 13 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Her last fight was a win back in February against Mackenzie Dern. At third is Yi Shin-anon with a record of 17 wins and 4 losses. And fourth is Tatiana Suarez with a record of 11 wins and 0 losses. Ranked fifth is Verna Jandiroba with a record of 20 wins and 3 losses. Her last fight was back in the end of March with a win against Lupi Godinez. And sixth is Jessica Andrade with 26 wins and 12 losses. Her last fight was in April with a win against Marina Rodriguez. And then when Rodriguez is seventh with a record of 17 wins, 4 losses, and 2 draws. Mackenzie Dern is at 8 with a record of 13 wins and 5 losses. And then in ninth, who we just talked about, is Amanda Ribas with a record of 13 wins and 5 losses. And her last fight, like we said, was against Rose Namajunas. And then lastly at 10th is Angela Hill with 17 wins and 13 losses. Now let's talk about the rankings in the Bantamweight division. There we go. Raquel Pennington is ranked first with 16 wins. First, is that even a word? First with 16 wins and 8 losses. Her last fight was back in January with the win against Mayra Beno Silva. And second is Kayla Harrison with a record of 17 wins and 1 loss. She won her last fight against Holly Holm in April. Ketlen Vieira is in third with 14 wins and 3 losses. And then in fourth is Holly Holm with a record of 15 wins and 7 losses. And we already talked about her unfortunate loss in her last fight. In fifth is Irene Aldana with 15 wins and 7 losses as well. And next in sixth is Sarah McMahon with a record of 14 wins and 7 losses. And then we have Norma Dumont with 11 wins and 2 losses. Her last fight was in April and she beat Germaine de Redemay. In eighth is Panine Kia Onzid with 16 wins and 8 losses. Her last fight was back in March and she unfortunately lost to Macy Chason. Moving on to ninth, we have Carol Rosa with 17 wins and 6 losses. And lastly is 10th is Yana Santos with a record of 14 wins and 8 losses. So now let's just quickly talk about the rankings in the flyweight division. This is probably my favorite division to watch because there's like really close, tight competition in some of these fights. In first is Alexa Grasso, who has 16 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. She had a draw with Valentina Shevchenko back in September, and Shevchenko is now number 2 in the flyweight division. Shevchenko has 23 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. In third is Manon Fiorot with 12 wins and 1 losses, and her last fight was against Erin Blanchfield. And then Blanchfield is in fourth with 12 wins and 2 losses. And fifth is the famous Liz Carmoch with 21 wins and 7 losses. Her last fight was in April with a win against Juliana Velequez. And sixth is Macy Barber with 14 wins and 2 losses. And she beat Caitlin Sermonaro back in March, and that was her last fight since. And seventh is Jessica Andrade with 26 wins and 12 losses. And she won against Marina Rodriguez in April, and that was her last fight since. In eighth is Caitlin Sermonaro with 18 wins and 6 losses. And in ninth is Rose Namajunas, who we talked about, with 12 wins and 6 losses. And her last fight was the one against Amanda Ribas in March. Lastly, in 10th is Viviane Araujo with 12 wins and 6 losses. And her last fight was an unfortunate loss to Natalia Silva in February. So we're now going to move on to the next segment where we're going to talk about the CrossFit semifinal results in the Oceania region. This is my favorite part of this show today. I love talking about the CrossFit semifinals, any of the CrossFit competitions, and the Oceania one was very tight, close competition, so I recommend that y'all stay tuned for that. Also, someone just asked if I'm watching any sports tonight. I'm going to be catching up on WNBA games. I have some, ready for me to watch. I have to, catch up in some of them from this week. So that is the things that I'll be watching in sports tonight. Also am planning on watching some of the ones from more recently. But anyway, okay, so we're going to go take a quick break and I will see you guys very soon.